The galaxy's most experienced warrior woman came to my home. Elias lived alone on the edge of the settlement, where the land turned quiet and the stars felt closer than people. His house was small, made from old human alloy panels and reinforced stone. It had survived dust storms, supply shortages, and years of silence. He liked it that way. Silence did not ask questions. Every morning, Elias woke before the sun. He checked the sky, the sensors buried under the soil, and the old warning console inside his home. Most days there was nothing, no ships, no signals, just wind across red grass and the distant hum of the settlement far away. This world was not important. That was why Elias chose it. Humans had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. They built cities, stations, and trade routes, but they also learned something early. Attention brought trouble. The more important a place became, the more eyes watched it. Elias did not want eyes. He had once been important. Once his name had been spoken in command rooms and war councils. Once alien leaders had studied his decisions and tried to copy his thinking. That life was gone now. He made sure of it. On this night the wind was calm. The sky was clear. Elias was sitting at his table repairing a small farming drone. His hands moved with slow confidence. He did not rush. Rushing led to mistakes. Then the warning console made a sound. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. Just a single tone, low and steady. Elias froze. That sound meant one thing. Something had entered the atmosphere without registering with the public traffic network. He stood slowly and walked to the window. The sky to the east was changing. A faint blue light moved between the stars, controlled and silent. No engine flare. No broadcast signal. Military. Elias felt a familiar weight settle in his chest, not fear, readiness. The light descended beyond the ridge near his home. The ground trembled once gently. Whatever had landed was large but careful. Elias checked his sensors again. The ship was advanced, very advanced. Alien design, but not one he saw often. The power signature alone made his old instincts uneasy. He put on his coat and stepped outside. The air was cold. The stars were bright. The blue glow now lit the ridge like artificial moonlight. Elias walked toward it, his boots quiet on the soil. He did not carry a weapon. He did not need one. Anyone who came here like this was not afraid of weapons. As he reached the top of the ridge, he saw the ship clearly. It was tall and narrow, built for combat rather than comfort. Its surface bore marks of old damage, repaired again and again. This ship had been to many battles. It stood there like a warrior at rest, patient and dangerous. A ramp extended from the side. Elias stopped walking. He waited. After several seconds, the ramp touched the ground. Light spilled out. A figure appeared at the top. She was tall, taller than most humans. Her armor was dark and worn, shaped to her body like it had grown there. Symbols were carved into the metal, some faded, some sharp. Each one meant something: victories, losses, survival. She walked down the ramp slowly, her movements controlled and balanced, not rushed, not cautious, confident. Her face was alien, but close enough to human that the differences felt intentional rather than strange. Her eyes were bright gold, sharp and observant. Scars crossed her skin, old and healed. This was Kalith Vorn. Elias knew the name the moment he saw her. So did half the galaxy. Kalith Vorn was not just a warrior. She was history. She had fought in wars before some species discovered space travel. She had trained armies, broken fleets, ended conflicts by simply arriving. Entire cultures built stories around her presence. She was the most experienced warrior woman the galaxy had ever known, and she was standing in front of Elias' home. Kalith stopped several steps away from him. She did not reach for a weapon. She did not bow. She looked at him closely, studying his face, his posture, the calm in his eyes. "You are Elias," she said. Her voice was deep and steady, shaped by command. Elias nodded once. "You came a long way." "Yes," she said. "I needed to." They stood in silence. The wind moved around them, carrying dust and quiet. "You are far from human centers," Kalith said. "That was not easy to confirm." "I planned it that way," Elias replied. She gave a small nod. "I expected that answer." Elias gestured toward his house. "You should come inside." "The night gets colder." Kalith looked at the house, simple, strong, old by galactic standards. "You are not afraid," she said. Elias shrugged. "Fear is loud. This situation is quiet." For a moment, Kalith's expression changed. Something like interest passed through her eyes. She followed him inside. The house was warm. Light came from old lamps, human-made, reliable. Kalith scanned the room with trained precision. She noticed exits, angles, materials, but she also noticed the small things. A table repaired many times, tools cleaned and organized. A shelf of old books, not data crystals. "You live alone," she said. "Yes, by choice." "Yes." Elias poured water into 2 cups and offered one to her. She accepted it, her grip careful. She did not drink immediately. "You know who I am?" Calith said. "Yes." "And you know why others fear me?" "Yes." "Then why do you offer me water instead of questions?" Elias sat down. "Because you are tired." Calith paused. No one had said that to her in a very long time. She took a sip of water. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. "You were not always a farmer," she said. "No. You were not always hidden." "No. Your name appears in records I studied," Calith said. "Human war planning, defensive doctrine, psychological endurance." Elias did not respond. "You disappeared after the third border conflict," she continued. "No ceremony, no explanation." "I was done," Elias said. Calith watched him carefully. "No one is ever done, they just choose different battles." Elias looked at her then. "Why are you here?" Calith placed the cup down gently. "Because the galaxy is about to repeat its worst mistake." Elias leaned back slightly. "And you think I care?" "I think you will," she said, "because humans always do, even when they pretend not to." Outside, distant engines hummed, not near. But not far enough to ignore. Calith's eyes flicked toward the wall. "You were followed," Elias said. "Yes, on purpose." "Yes," Elias nodded slowly. "You wanted witnesses." "I wanted the right kind," Calith replied. The silence returned, heavier now. "The councils want war," Calith said. "Again, they want a short one, a clean one, they always do." "And you," Elias said, "are the symbol they want to use." "I am tired of being used," Calith said. Elias stood and walked to the window. Stars filled the sky. "They will come here," he said. "Yes. They will expect me to be afraid." "Yes," he smiled faintly. "That will disappoint them." Calith watched him, and for the first time in centuries, the legendary warrior felt something unfamiliar: hope. Outside, unseen ships adjusted their courses. Messages spread quietly through command networks. Sensors across the sector began to focus on one small, unimportant world. And in a simple house on the edge of nowhere, a human and the galaxy's greatest warrior sat together, knowing this was only the beginning. Morning came slowly on the quiet world, but the silence did not feel peaceful anymore. Elias woke before the light reached the windows. He did not need alarms. His body remembered this feeling, the sense that something large was moving even if it had not arrived yet. Calith was already awake. She stood outside the house, facing the open land, her posture straight and still. Her armor caught the early light, dull but strong. She looked like part of the landscape now, ancient and unmoving. Elias stepped out and stood beside her. For a moment neither spoke. "You do not sleep much," Elias said. "I sleep when there is nothing to prepare for," Calith replied. "This is not one of those times." Elias nodded. In the distance, faint marks in the sky showed where ships had passed during the night. Fast ones, careful ones, observers. "They are watching," Elias said. "Yes," Calith replied. "They are deciding how much force to bring." Elias looked toward the settlement far away. Smoke rose from small homes, normal life continuing without knowing how close danger was. "They won't attack openly," Elias said. "Not yet." "No," Calith agreed. "First they will test." Later that day, the first test came. A single shuttle appeared in the sky, broadcasting a public signal. Official, calm, friendly. It landed near the settlement, not near Elias' home. That was intentional. They wanted witnesses, not resistance. Elias watched the feed on his old screen. Representatives from 3 different species stepped out together. A rare thing. Cooperation like that only happened when fear was involved. "They want you to come to them," Elias said. "They want you to send me away," Calith replied. Elias smiled slightly. "They chose the wrong place." The settlement leaders contacted Elias within minutes. They were nervous but respectful. They knew his past, even if they pretended not to. "They say it is a diplomatic visit," one of them said. "They request cooperation." Elias ended the call politely. "They will be confused," Calith said. "They already are," Elias replied. By midday, drones circled the area near Elias' home. They stayed at a careful distance. Scanning, measuring, waiting for signs of panic. They found none. Elias moved through his house calmly, checking systems he had not used in years. Old defenses came online quietly. Nothing aggressive, nothing obvious, just readiness. Calith watched him work. "You built this for more than farming," she said. I built it for time, Elias replied. She considered that. Humans plan for time more than space. That is rare. Time is what defeats stronger enemies, Elias said. That evening, the representatives arrived at Elias' home. They did not come in armor. They came in symbols and formal clothing. They smiled carefully and spoke slowly. Caliph stood behind Elias, silent and imposing. They spoke of balance, of stability, of the danger Caliph represented if she acted independently. They spoke of laws and councils and responsibility. Elias listened without interrupting. When they finished, he spoke simply. She is my guest. The representatives exchanged looks. She is not human, one of them said carefully. She is still my guest, Elias replied. They warned him, they hinted at consequences. They reminded him of humanity's position in the galaxy, still young, still watched. Elias nodded at each point. Then he said, if you are worried about war, leave. If you are planning one, stay. Either way, do not threaten my home. The air felt heavier after that. They left soon after. That night, Caliph sat across from Elias, her expression thoughtful. You stood between me and them, she said. You stood between the galaxy and itself, Elias replied. Caliph looked down at her hands. I have stood in front of armies. I have faced weapons that burned worlds. None of that felt like this. Because this matters, Elias said. Elsewhere, far beyond the quiet world, messages traveled fast. Command fleets adjusted position. Military planners studied Elias' old records. Analysts argued. Some called him outdated, others called him dangerous. One phrase appeared again and again. Humans do not bluff. The next test came sooner. A group of armed ships entered the system openly this time. They did not attack. They positioned themselves in a visible orbit, sending a clear message. We are here. The settlement panicked. Elias remained calm. Caliph watched the ships through the window. They are afraid, she said. They should be, Elias replied. He did not mobilize weapons. He did not send threats. He sent messages instead. Calm, clear, human. To the settlement, he sent reassurance and instructions. To the orbiting fleet, he sent records, footage, history. He showed them times when humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and still endured. Times when humans chose defense over destruction and won anyway. Caliph watched as responses slowed. Confusion replaced confidence. They expected force, she said. They got context, Elias replied. That night a single ship broke from the formation and descended toward Elias' land. Caliph stiffened. Elias raised a hand. Wait! The ship landed carefully. A lone figure stepped out. Smaller, younger, an officer. The officer spoke honestly. They want you to surrender her. Elias stepped forward. She stays. The officer hesitated. If you refuse, others will come not to talk. Elias looked at Caliph. She met his gaze. I know, Elias said. Tell them this. He leaned closer and spoke quietly. The officer returned to the ship and left. Caliph watched the stars. What did you say? She asked. Elias answered simply. I reminded them what happens when humans are forced to choose between fear and responsibility. The orbiting ships did not move that night. Across the galaxy, debates turned heated. Some argued for immediate action. Others warned of human reaction. Caliph felt something change inside her. For centuries, she had been the center of fear. Now fear was shifting away from her, toward humanity. But not the kind of fear born from cruelty. The kind born from understanding that humans would not step aside. As the stars watched silently, Caliph realized the truth. She had not come here to ask for protection. She had come here to witness what real strength looked like. And the galaxy was only beginning to notice. The third day began without alarms, but Elias felt the change before he saw it. The air itself seemed tighter, as if the world was holding its breath. When he stepped outside, the sky was no longer empty. High above, faint shapes moved against the stars, not hiding now, watching openly. Caliph stood beside him, her gaze sharp. They have decided, she said. Yes, Elias replied. They just haven't agreed on how. The settlement sent another message asking for guidance. People were afraid now. Children were being kept indoors. Trade ships avoided the system. Fear traveled faster than ships. Elias answered calmly, telling them to stay where they were, to trust their shelters, and to watch for his signal if they needed to move. His tone never changed. That alone eased some of the fear. Caliph noticed. You do not sound like a commander, she said. You sound like someone who expects people to survive. Because they usually do, Elias replied. By midday, the fleets in orbit shifted positions. More ships arrived. Different designs, different species. They did not trust each other, but they feared the same thing. They feared uncertainty. A message came through all channels, broadcast to the system. It was not a threat. It was a demand dressed as reason. They wanted Calith to leave human space and submit herself to council oversight. They promised protection. They promised stability. Calith listened in silence. They promise cages with better words, she said. Yes, Elias replied. They always do, she turned to him. If I go, this ends peacefully. For now, Elias said, until the next time they decide you are useful again. Calith looked away. I am tired of being the reason worlds hold their breath. Elias studied her carefully. You are not the reason, you are the excuse. That struck deeper than she expected. That afternoon, a small craft landed near the house again. This time it did not bring diplomats, it brought observers, military analysts, quiet ones. They requested a meeting. Elias agreed. They sat inside his home, surrounded by simple walls and old tools. The observers tried to hide their discomfort. They were used to command decks and power. One of them spoke. Human Elias, the situation is becoming unstable. Yes, Elias replied. That is what happens when fear is allowed to plan. You are risking escalation, another said. So are you, Elias replied calmly. They argued logic, probability, risk assessment. They spoke of how many ships they could bring, how quickly humans could be overwhelmed if conflict began. Elias listened patiently. Then he stood and activated a small projector. Images filled the room, old battlefields, human colonies under siege. Evacuation corridors held together by stubborn courage. He did not show victories first, he showed losses. Humans lose often, Elias said. We survive anyway. The observers shifted uneasily. You think we do not understand strength, one of them said. I think you misunderstand restraint, Elias replied. He showed them something else. Cooperation between humans and alien species during disasters, times when humans had power and chose not to use it fully. This is why you fear us, Elias said quietly. Not because we destroy, but because we decide when not to. Silence filled the room. The observers left without another word. That night, Calith sat alone outside, watching the stars. Elias joined her. I have fought for so long, she said. I believed experience was the highest form of wisdom. And now, Elias said, and now I see experience can also become a cage, she replied. She looked at him. You could have been like me. I almost was, Elias said. What stopped you? Humans, he replied simply. Calith thought about that for a long time. Across the system, something changed. The fleet stopped moving aggressively. Messages slowed. Arguments grew louder in council chambers far away. They were losing control of the narrative, so they tried something else. At dawn, a strike team dropped near the settlement. Not to attack civilians, to take Calith by force quietly, quickly, before humans could react. They underestimated how closely Elias watched the ground. Sensors triggered. Alerts moved through the settlement exactly as Elias planned. Not panic, movement. Calith felt it immediately. They are coming. Yes, Elias said, and they will fail. He did not grab a weapon, he grabbed a communicator. Humans moved, farmers became guides, mechanics became signal relays, old veterans stepped into roles they never forgot. No one shouted. No one panicked. Calith watched in disbelief as the strike team advanced and found nothing where they expected resistance. Doors opened to empty spaces. Paths led into traps made of light and sound, not destruction. They were surrounded without realizing it. Elias spoke to them over an open channel. You are standing on human ground. No one here wants to harm you. Leave now. They hesitated. Calith stepped forward into view. I will not go with you, she said calmly. Not like this. The strike team withdrew. No shots were fired. No blood spilled. The message traveled faster than any weapon. Humans had stopped an elite force without violence. The galaxy noticed. That evening the fleets pulled back slightly, just enough to signal uncertainty. Calith stood beside Elias, her voice low. In all my wars, I never saw this. War is easy, Elias said. Peace requires coordination. She laughed softly, surprised by herself. You are dangerous, she said. I know, Elias replied. That is why I hide. The stars above shifted as ships repositioned again, this time not in threat, but in caution. Calith felt something settle inside her, a decision forming not from fear or duty, but from understanding. For the first time in her long life, she did not feel like a weapon waiting to be used. She felt like a witness to something greater. And deep within the galaxy's networks, a quiet realization spread. If humanity chose to stand, it would not be with fire alone. It would be with patience, unity, and an unbreakable refusal to surrender responsibility. The galaxy was learning, slowly, painfully, but it was learning. The fourth day did not begin with silence. It began with sound. Low vibrations rolled through the ground beneath Elias' home, steady and controlled, not explosions. Engines, many of them. Elias stood at the doorway, feeling the rhythm through his boots. This was not a probe or a test anymore. This was presence. Kalith joined him, her eyes scanning the sky. The stars above were crowded now. Large shapes blocked familiar constellations, ships of many designs arranged carefully, forming lines and layers. "They have committed," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "Now they need an ending." The settlement sent urgent messages. People were frightened but organized. Shelters were active. Evacuation paths stood ready, but no one ran. Elias' instructions from earlier days held strong. Kalith watched human families move calmly, helping one another, sharing space and supplies. "They trust you," she said. "They trust each other," Elias replied. "That matters more." A new message arrived, broadcast across every channel. This one was different, clear, firm, final. The Council fleets declared the system under temporary control. They demanded Kalith's immediate surrender and ordered all humans to remain inside designated zones. Kalith's jaw tightened. "They are done pretending." "Yes," Elias said. "So are we." He did something unexpected. He sent a system-wide response, not just to fleets, to everyone listening. "This is a human settlement," Elias said calmly. "We do not belong to you. We will not be occupied. If you leave now, there will be no conflict." The silence that followed was heavy. Then the fleets moved. Not toward the settlement, toward Elias' home. Kalith stepped forward. "They want me." "They want control," Elias said. "You are just the excuse." Dropships began descending, not fast, not violent, confident. Kalith turned to Elias. "I can end this if I go out alone." "And start the next war," Elias replied. "No," she looked at him sharply. "You are risking your people." "I am protecting their future," Elias said. The first dropship landed beyond the ridge. Armored figures emerged, disciplined and well-equipped. They moved with precision, spreading out. Human sensors tracked them all. Elias activated his network. Across the settlement and the surrounding land, small signals lit up. Not weapons, people. Human volunteers took positions they had trained for quietly over the years. Engineers adjusted terrain controls. Pilots powered civilian craft into support roles. Kalith watched in disbelief. "You prepared for this without ever saying so." "Humans prepare by living," Elias replied. The armored units advanced, expecting resistance. They found cooperation instead. Paths shifted. Ground hardened or softened beneath their feet. Communication interference confused their formations. They were not attacked. They were delayed, redirected, separated. Elias spoke to them calmly over open channels. "You are surrounded by people who do not want to hurt you. Leave." Their commanders hesitated. Above, fleets adjusted position again. Tension climbed. One commander made a decision. A warning shot fired into empty ground near the house. The sound echoed across the land. Every human froze. Kalith stepped forward, her voice steady but powerful. "Stop!" The armored units halted, surprised. She removed her helmet and walked into open view. "I am Kalith Vorn," she said. "I have ended wars that burned stars. I will not be taken like an object." She turned slightly, gesturing to the humans behind her. "These people stood between me and your fear. If you fire again, it will not be them you face." The commander hesitated. Above, a massive ship shifted position, blocking starlight. A final message came from the Council fleet, authorization for force. Elias closed his eyes briefly. Then he did something no one expected. He ordered all human defenses to stand down. Kalith stared at him. "Elias!" "Watch," he said quietly. The humans obeyed. Every signal faded. Paths cleared. Interference ended. The armored units found themselves no longer delayed. Confusion spread through their ranks. Elias sent one last message to the fleets. "You want control," he said. "Take it, but understand this. If you force this, humans everywhere will remember who made the choice." Silence. Then something changed. One fleet broke formation and pulled back. Then another. Commanders argued. Alliances strained. No one wanted to be the one recorded as the aggressor against calm civilians and a legendary warrior who had chosen peace. Kalith felt it, the shift, the doubt. "They are afraid to be seen," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. Humans taught them that visibility matters. The authorization was never confirmed. The armored units received new orders. Withdraw, dropships lifted off. The sky slowly cleared. The system was quiet again, but not empty. Kalith stood still long after the last ship left. "You won without fighting," she said softly. "No," Elias replied. "We showed them they would lose if they did." She turned to him fully now. "I have been called the greatest warrior in the galaxy." He met her gaze. "You still are." "No," she said. "A warrior fights battles. Humans decide outcomes." She looked out at the settlement where people slowly emerged, helping each other, checking on neighbors. "For the first time," she said, "I want to belong somewhere without being needed as a weapon." Elias nodded. "Then stay." Above them, distant stars flickered as fleets retreated further. Across the galaxy, records updated. Analysts rewrote projections. Commanders redefined caution. The message was clear. Humanity would not be ruled by fear. And the galaxy would think very carefully before knocking on a quiet human door again. The day after the fleets withdrew felt different from silence. It felt watched, but not threatened. Elias noticed it as he stood outside his home, looking at the clean sky. The stars were visible again, no longer blocked by massive ships. Yet the quiet was heavier than before. Kalith stood nearby, no armor this time, wearing simple human clothing Elias had offered. It did not hide her strength, but it changed how others would see her. "They will speak now," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "They cannot pretend this did not happen." Across the galaxy, councils gathered. Messages moved through official channels. Recordings from the settlement spread quickly. Analysts replayed the moment when humans stood down and still won. The moment when fear had no answer. A formal request arrived before noon. The councils asked for a public address, not a demand, a request. Elias read the message once, then handed it to Kalith. "They want you to speak," he said. "They want to understand," she replied, "or control the story." "Both," Elias said. Kalith looked at the settlement in the distance. Children were playing again. Adults repaired small damages left by heavy movement. Life continued. "I have spoken for war," she said quietly. "I have spoken for surrender. I have never spoken for something like this." "You won't be speaking alone," Elias said. The address was broadcast from the settlement's small communication tower. No grand hall, no symbols of power. Just open sky and honest ground. Kalith stood before the camera. Elias stood beside her, slightly back as he preferred. "I am Kalith Vorn," she began. "I have been called many things: weapon, champion, destroyer, protector." She paused. "I am tired of all of them." Across the galaxy, countless beings watched. "I came to this world seeking shelter from being used. I found something else. I found people who refused to fear me and refused to use me." She turned slightly toward Elias. "They did not ask what I could do for them. They asked what they could protect." Elias did not speak. He did not need to. Kalith faced the camera again. "The councils demand control because they believe strength must be directed. Humans showed me that strength can also be trusted." A murmur spread through distant halls. "I will not submit to councils as a weapon," she said. "I will not fight wars of fear. I choose to stand with humanity as a guardian, not as a tool." Silence followed, long and deep. Then Elias stepped forward. "Humans are not perfect," he said calmly. "We make mistakes. We fight when we should talk, we hide when we should stand." He looked directly into the camera. "But we learn, and when we decide to protect something, we do not let go." The broadcast ended. Reactions came quickly. Some councils protested, others hesitated. Many remained silent, unsure how to respond without appearing weak. The galaxy shifted again, not with engines, but with thought. That evening, Kalith and Elias walked together near the ridge where her ship still rested. "You did not try to convince them," she said. "No," Elias replied. "Convincing is temporary, showing lasts longer." Kalith stopped walking. "I have a choice to make." Elias waited. "I could stay here," she said. "Live quietly, help protect without being seen." "Yes," Elias said. "Or I could leave," she continued. "Travel openly, speak to worlds that still believe fear is strength." Elias looked at her. "What do you want?" Kalith smiled faintly. "For the first time, I want responsibility, not escape." The next days passed without incident. Fleets kept their distance. Trade slowly resumed. Messages arrived from other species, not official but personal. Questions, curiosity, hope. Kalith answered some. Elias answered none. On the seventh day, Kalith prepared her ship. Elias helped quietly checking systems, offering small human adjustments that made large differences. You taught me something, Calith said as they worked. And you reminded the galaxy, Elias replied. When the ship was ready, Calith stood at the ramp. I will return, she said. I know, Elias replied. She paused. They will call this the moment humans changed the balance. Elias shook his head slightly. No, this is the moment they noticed it. Calith laughed softly. She stepped onto the ramp, then turned once more. If they come again, she said. They won't, Elias replied, not like before. The ship lifted gently, rising into the sky without force or display. It vanished among the stars. Elias stood alone again, but the silence was different now. Across the galaxy, records updated. New doctrines formed. The phrase human response entered strategic language, meaning calm, unified, and unavoidable. Calith traveled from world to world not as a conqueror but as proof. Proof that even the most experienced warrior could choose restraint. And on a quiet world at the edge of attention, Elias returned to his simple life, repairing tools, watching skies, and trusting that humanity would do what it always did. Stand when it mattered, not because they were strongest, but because they understood when strength was no longer the point. The galaxy would remember that for a very long time.